All right, I'm going to go through how to get the final version pretty much done. I won't be able to finish the essay I've started, but I want to go through all the elements that you need to go through so you can put it all together. Okay. Now, this is English 104. You should have had MLA in English 101, and should have, could have, would have. I do know that people get a little bit rusty with MLA, or their instructors didn't show them elements of it. I will go over most of those elements that you're going to need. And one of the phrases I really want you to kind of tattoo in the back of your forehead is that MLA is easier than not MLA. What I've noticed is that when I really get students to understand what MLA is about, it's kind of nice. As in, that's a lot simpler than what I was doing before. In the vast majority of cases, when students are struggling and trying to figure and making things up, they're making it more complicated than it is. Something that's very important about MLA. In MLA is the precursor to APA. So if you use APA, basically MLA is the foundation of it. Okay. And what guided them in making it was making darn sure all the you give credit where credit's due. Okay, that you're not taking anybody's ideas, but also following this through as simply as possible so that people could do it as easily as possible. Because way back in my day, we used to have put footnotes on the bottom of the page and every instructor was different. MLA is the Modern Language Association. They came up with the idea, let's get one way to do things and let's have everybody do it this one way. And what they did over the years, it really started in 1984, is they made it more efficient and simpler and more effective. It wasn't that complicated back in 84, but they've refined it over the years and made it more appropriate to a more digital age. But they kept the basic idea that to keep it as simple as possible. And so learn MLA, and you'll have a very easy time learning APA. It's based on MLA. It's the American Psychological Association. It's the other major method you might come across. And again, the same exact requirements are guided them, guidelines guided them as they developed it, to keep it as simple as possible, but to also make sure you give credit where credit's due for research and other things like that. APA works a little bit differently because the sciences work a little bit differently. Okay, both of them work very well in their environments. MLA works best in the humanities, history, philosophy, English. MLA works better. Biology, psychology, engineering, APA works better. And so if you, whichever field you're going into, learn that approach, and you are learning the simplest way possible to give proper citation, but also to format things in as simple and predictable as a manner. Okay, so let me go through this now, and I'll show you the MLA because this is English. So we'll follow MLA, but if you are an APA person, a biology student, a psych student, understand that all the reasoning is going to go pretty much the same in APA, but they're going to change some small characteristics. Okay, let me show you how to move from the middle draft into the final version. And I'm going to stop it a few times and do a little bit of refinement because it gets a little bit boring. But, and you know, sometimes you get a little bit older. Okay, stick with me. I'll shrink myself up, and here's my middle draft. Okay, this is where I left it when last we left off, and here it is. It's the middle draft, and I'm going to be going into the final version. And now you need either Word or Google Docs. Either one of them is perfectly fine. If you're one of those Apple people like I am when I'm at home, you can use Pages. It works fine. But stick with me on this. Okay, you're going to need to convert it into a PDF, but Pages does it, Google Docs does it, and Word does it. Okay, this was the first body paragraph, this was the second, and this was the third, and here's the fourth. Okay, I still need to set the context up, but I didn't get that. I'll do this 3 paragraphs, so I don't want to waste your time. And here is my first attempt at the introduction. So in my thesis, a little bit I got to work on it. We'll see what I can get done. Let's move this over into a Google Doc. Okay, so if you're working in Google Docs, this will make sense. But one thing I want to be very clear about both Google Docs and Word work almost exactly the same. They have the same basic logic behind them. It's not the same programs. They do work at a microscopic level. The code itself is different, but who cares? The look and feel are very, very similar. And yes, Google did base it on Word to make sure that people kind of knew how to use it already. Okay, let's shrink myself back up. Okay, let's first, what I'm going to urge you to do is move the introduction. Let's act like this one is done. And what you do is just copy it. And here's my Google Doc. And I know most of you are sitting there thinking, well, what about the name and all that? We'll get it. So there's my first sentence, and move it over just, as fast as you basically can, and just move it over one bit at a time. And hopefully you can move it over a little bit faster than I do. And I'm going to slow this down. I'm going to shut this off for a second, and I'm going to move over the introduction. Okay? Be back in a moment. Okay, we're back, and what I want to do, I worked on the essay a little bit, and I want to show you, I stopped right now because I want to show you a little bit on what goes on with the thesis. First of all, I finished composing more of the introduction, okay? So let me show you that. I wrote a general topic sentence that mentions both of them in the general topic of the essay, okay? For about having a peaceful and equitable society, okay, is important to both of them. But they have different approaches to it, okay? And then I have what the Lao Tzu is about, and then I have why the Lao Tzu is important from the first body paragraph. And I looked back to, in the original middle draft, I looked back to the first body paragraph for these when I was writing the introduction. And then I looked back to the second body paragraph for this one on Wollstonecraft. What's it about? Well, Wollstonecraft sees inequity in society as not only holding women back, but also leaving them to be less moral and undermine society. I should say be less moral and anti-social. That's what I started to use, so I'll go with that. Okay. He sees that kind of dishonesty and the undermining of others as being something that comes from the inequity. Okay, and why is that important? When placed in an inherently inequitable position, the intellect and virtue of women are lessened, which forces them to undermine society from an individualistic position. That's why it's important. I've covered the first body paragraph. I covered the second. That's what it's about. And then I just added right now on the third, what it's about and then why it's important. And then I did the fourth, and I also added this right now, and I looked back to the middle draft of the fourth body paragraph. I said, what is it about and why is it important? And I just came up with a sentence on each. And then I was writing the thesis, but I thought, hey, I think if they got to watch me write it, they'd probably get an idea. Now, mind you, this is not what the final is going to look like. Let me show you a little bit of the method of the thesis statement. What you want to do in this thesis statement, let me blow myself up, is you want to compare them, show how they're both somewhat alike. And this could be both Machiavelli and Lao Tzu both want to create a more peaceful society. They do, even though they're totally different. Come across first with how they're both similar, no matter whom you're writing on. And then go, comma, but while Machiavelli, blah, 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 comma, Lao Tzu, this. That structure is an inherently insightful structure. It's a coordinated structure that works for a comparison-contrast essay. Both do this, comma, but while one does that, comma, the other one does the other thing. Okay, you could reverse that structure overall and say, while Lao Tzu does this, but Dougie does that, comma, both do this. You could switch that around. But the one statement, the independent clause, but while, and then comma, and then another one. That structure works really well. So let me compose it right now. Let me actually take the top of my head off and show you how I'm going to do this, okay? It's okay. Don't worry. It'll all go back. Okay, so I'm going to do the similarity first. And this is not going to be great, but it's going to be okay, okay? hopefully I can get a C. Both Lao Tzu and Wollstonecraft share the goal of creating a more equitable society. Now, this is the shift, but while Lao Tzu sees this as possible only through holding back the intellect and abilities of citizens who would distinguish themselves. Wollstonecraft sees a stronger and it's my spelling, starting from equity as are challenged to support themselves and contribute to the strength of the nation. Now, mind you, that was really tedious, but I want you to see something. Both of them do this together. And it doesn't matter if you're dealing with Plato and Machiavelli, or Wollstonecraft and Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu and, Machiavelli, or whomever, whichever two, find something that they have in common. And then this little thing, but while, what that sets up is another, the but sets up, the comma but sets up another independent clause. When you go to while, you actually have a dependent clause. It sets up an independent clause, but it throws a dependent clause in first. The independent clause is actually way down here. Okay, that but is necessary to do that. Okay, so but while sets up a new sentence really that starts with a dependent clause right here. But while this, then that. Okay. But while Lao Tzu sees this as possible only through holding back the intellects and abilities of citizens who would distinguish themselves, Wollstonecraft sees a stronger society starting from equity as the individuals are challenged, there's my typos again, are challenged to support themselves and contribute to the strength of the nation. That is now an introduction, okay? What I'm going to do next, okay, and this is probably going to take a little bit over. What I'm going to do is move the body paragraphs over one by one, okay? So I won't put you through that, but what I'm going to be doing is going over here, and I'm going to be grabbing the first body paragraph, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. I'm going to copy it and paste it all over. And then I'll show you how to format it, okay? So I'll be back in a moment, and we'll hopefully Frank will grow a new head. Okay, I'm back. And I got most of it moved over. Now, mind you, I'm going to do this with only 3 body paragraphs, just because I didn't have the fourth one all done. Mistakes were made. But I'm going to show you all the elements you're going to need for yours, okay? So let me shrink myself back up. And here it is, and it's a big mess, okay? All I did was go over to the middle draft and I basically just copied and then pasted it over. And this is totally unacceptable, okay? But hey, let's fix it, okay? So let's do this one thing at a time. First, let's get the name in there. So go to the top left-hand margin and let's make this Dougie's essay. Dougie McSluggy. And then you put the professor's name in there. And just put the name in. Very important, spell my name right, please. Okay. The class is English 104. You don't have to put in the section number and all that. It's nice, but you don't have to. And then you put the date, day, month, year. Day, month, year, because it is done differently throughout the world. The rest of the world does it day, month, year. The United States does month, day, year. Just Follow along. And so 29 in June 2022. You put in the date that you handed it in, okay? Now, a few things I'm going to do here, and let's get the title, okay? And learn how to spell. Some people are sometimes surprised that I can't spell. Yeah. Now what I do, now watch these things as I go through, okay? And well, let me put my name up in the corner, okay? Because this is kind of tricky for some people. You do need your name right over here, okay? You need, so I'm going to have McSluggy1. And what you don't want to do, don't do this, okay? Promise me you won't do this, okay? You promise me, even Frank promises, don't do this, okay? Where you double click on the margin and then write it in. Don't do that, okay? Let me click out of there. Instead, what I want you to do is go up here, go to Insert, and it's essentially the same in Microsoft Word or in Pages, Apple. Go to Insert, and then go to Find Page Number. Now for Microsoft Word, they've got it higher up, and Apple, they've got it kind of, whatever, you get the idea. You're going to find page number, and for this one in Google Docs, you want the upper right-hand margin. Okay, that's this right here. Okay, you don't want this one because that's for APA. If you're an APA student, science students, note that. Coming up, you don't have a cover page in MLA. Go here and choose this one. Upper right-hand corner is what you want to do. What this does is, and let me click on it, and it's magic. It puts the page numbers throughout. And so 2, 3, that's what it does. Most of you are sitting there going, I know this already, and I do, but the person sitting next to you isn't aware of this. So there's always a few students who aren't aware of this. And then type in your last name in a space, and you've got it. Okay. Again, my experience is that about half the class isn't fully aware of that little stunt. You are probably the only one who is. Okay. And then select everything. Everything in MLA, top to bottom, is double spaced. Okay. Everything is. Let me get myself a little bit more out of the way, and then look for this. The arrows that go up and down, that is the spacing. Everything in the essay, including the work cited, is double spaced. In APA, they do single space the references page, but we're not going to worry about that. Double. Everything's double. Okay. While we have the whole text selected, we're going to turn it all into Times New Roman. I'm asking for Times New Roman. I am asking for it because it's easier for me to read. Okay. MLA does not require any font. Okay. They tell you to follow whatever the instructor tells you. So I'm going to ask for Times New Roman. And so there you go. And then make it all 12 point. There you go. And that applies to everything, top to bottom of the essay. Okay. Now let's go through and get rid of all these extra returns. Okay. And let's get rid of some of these. Now for you Word people, if you're operating in Word, you will see, and this is a little bit of advice, I strongly recommend, I was an editor for a number of years, there is a little symbol up here on your toolbar where it's like a backwards P. It's backwards. Click that on. What that will do is show you all the spacing and all the returns. That can be helpful because I'm going to have to ask you to trust me a little bit later on. But turn that backwards P on. It will give you some information. It'll tell you where the paragraph breaks are, but also where the spaces are, and that's going to help. Okay. For the Google Docs people, unfortunately, it doesn't have that. Not that I know of. Let's center the title and just place the cursor on it. You don't need to select the title. That creates problems and sometimes grabs the next line. You don't need that. Just place it in it and hit center. I know 90% of you are sitting there thinking, I know this already, but every semester. Okay, no matter. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this in the introduction, I'm going to bring this all together. I know it's tedious, but it all comes together. And what you don't want are any new paragraphs where you just have separate sentences. I'm going to show you paragraphs in a little bit. Let me shut it off for a bit, and I'm going to put the introduction all together, and I'll be right back. Okay, hold your place. Okay, I'm back. Now let me show you how to do the introduction, what it should look like. Now, first of all, it is a new paragraph by itself, so it should be indented. Okay, you don't need extra spaces like that between the title and the introduction. You don't want to start the introduction at the margin either. Indent it. Okay, MLA indents. There you go. And there's my introduction. Now, something to review with your introduction, look for these elements. Do you set up your general topic in the first sentence? And then do you cover all of the body paragraphs in all of the sentences? And as we know, I sure did, because I know you'll get all mad at me, and I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, I've covered the first body paragraph, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. I've covered them all. And here's the thesis statement right here at the end. Okay, the thesis is at the end, and it's the last sentence. While you are in college or university, the thesis will be the last sentence of the introduction. If you were told differently in high school, they were wrong. Okay, I'm telling you right now, every college and university in the nation, and I've been to a few of them, they put the thesis statement as the last sentence of the introduction. Okay, so there's no middle ground on it. Okay, all right, let me shrink myself up again, and let's go to the body paragraphs. But that's what you're looking for in the introduction. That's this one. Okay, and a little rule of thumb, this is not an absolute, but your introduction, it should be about 3/4 of a page. It definitely needs to be more than half a page, and it shouldn't be more than a page. Okay, but about 3/4 of a page is what you're looking for. Okay, it's about to get the job done of setting up the body paragraphs, both the facts that you're going to deal with and the ideas you're going to impart. Getting all that done and getting a thesis at the end that's insightful. That's going to take about 3/4 of a page. Okay, here's the first body paragraph. And again, this is wrong, okay, but I've got it all here. Let's put it together. Now stick with me for a bit, okay? Let's bring this up and make it into the first body paragraph. A very important thing, do not have an extra space in between. Don't quadruple space it, okay? And then indent. This is the first body paragraph. And here's another thing, very important. Notice I'm not stopping and doing this and coming back. Very important. Do you block quote? Okay, some of you are saying yes. I'm going to tell you right now, no, no, no. Not this quotation. This quotation, and everybody stick with me, you can count. How many lines is it? 1, 2, 2.5. It's 2.5 lines, okay? It's not block quoted. It has to be 4 lines to be block quoted. 4, okay? So stick with me, this one is integrated. How do we do that? We do it like this. There you go. It's integrated. And then this is the description. It starts right after the quotation. Okay. And here is the analysis. It needs to be part of the same paragraph. There you go. This is all the first body paragraph with all 4 of the elements. I've set the context. That's the context. Then I have the quotation, and then I have the description, and then at the end I have the analysis. 4 elements in every body paragraph. Okay, I'm going to start putting together the rest of the body paragraphs, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're almost done. Stick with me for a bit. Now I'm doing 3 body paragraphs instead of the 4, and I finally came down to this one for the 3rd one. Okay, Here's the quotation. It's let's call it 4 lines, okay? Give it to me. It's really 3 7/8, but let's call it 4. So this one should be block quoted. The second one, it wasn't quite there. It was about 3.5 lines. It wasn't quite there. Okay. Here's the fourth one. It's basically 4 lines. So how do you block quote it? Okay. First of all, let's put it not quadruple spaced, but there it is. Here is all you have to do. This is the same exact function in Microsoft, in Apple, in Google Docs. You want to go to this little guy right up here, right above my head. Everybody see that? And I know about 80% of you, maybe 73.9% of you are saying, I know about that. Well, now all of you know. You click on this and you're done with the block quote format. Okay. What you don't do is indent. Don't do it. MLA is easier than not MLA. Don't hit an extra return. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I really want to emphasize MLA is easier than not MLA. Okay, just click this. That's Bill Gates and all of his wisdom put that in there for students doing block quotations. So you can just click on it, and then Google copied it. There it is. That is exactly what a block quotation looks like. 4 lines or more are block quoted. Fewer than 4 lines, don't block quote it. Integrate it. Have it look like this, where you put the quotations at the start and it's integrated, and you do that. And notice this, you don't have to put the name in there. You do in APA. There is a reason for that in APA. In MLA, you don't need to do it. Okay, rare instances in MLA, but we won't talk about that. And then what you would do, so I have all my body paragraphs, and this is what it looks like. This is just took a few minutes. There's the title and everything else. The conclusion starts with the thesis. Okay, so let's copy the thesis right here, and the conclusion. There it is. And what I would advise, rewrite it a little bit, just so it's a little bit better, because this is at the end, and then summarize your main points. It should take 2, 3, maybe 4 sentences. You can do it. Okay. And then for the works cited, this is what you tuned in for. Okay. Because it's multiple works, so it's works cited. And then let's get the names in there. And what I'm going to do is type the information in, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got all the information now. Let me show you the formatting. Okay. Now, you've got 2 readings that you've worked with, so you should have 2 different citations. I have Lao Tzu and I have Mary Wollstonecraft. Okay, so you should have 2. One for Plato, one for Machiavelli, or one for Machiavelli, one for Lao Tzu, whichever. You should have 2 in there. Okay, for each reading, each author. And the only distinctions will be the author, obviously, and then the title of the individual reading. Okay. The title of the source, the book, is the same, or the PDF. These are the same, okay? And just really quickly on this, works cited comes first, the author's name, here's the order of it. Author, the essay itself, and then the title of the book, or PDF, is Political Philosophy Readings. And then I'm going to ask you to put in edited by Joseph Pendleton, because the books you're going to be citing in the future, they're going to have an editor or a translator. It comes after the title of the book. Okay, don't put my name down as the author. I can't tell you how many times I'm credited with being the author of Plato's Republic. I didn't do it. Okay, and then you need the publisher, which in this case is Victor Valley College, and then comma. Okay, and I need it here too, because they are officially the publisher of the PDF, even though it's free, nothing. There's all the information. Now stick with me for a bit, because this is where people go bonkers, is on these last little format things. Get quotation marks around the title of the work. and then italicize. No need to underline, italicize. Most students I find know that. I'm doing Control I. Okay. And I'm going to show you something that when you're a college student at CSU San Bernardino, and you hear your roommate yelling and screaming, you're going to thank me, okay? Now, what happens in MLA is that the second line is indented, okay? The second line is. Watch this. Now, this is where most people start yelling at their cat or something else. I'm going to hit. I've got it positioned on the second line, right where I should, right? And I'm just going to hit the tab and watch what happens. What the heck? That didn't indent the second line where I had it. Let's try that again. I'm going to put it in the same spot. Darn it, it did it again. Okay. And if you're using Microsoft Word, it's going to indent the whole thing. And that's not what you want. So stick with me for a bit. There's one little step you're missing, and that will make your life so happy. Here we go. Put the cursor in front of the second line again. Then hit Enter. Notice it looks like it didn't do anything. You Microsoft Word people will see a big backwards P appear right there. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to hit Enter. There is now what's called a hard return being entered. Okay. I find very few students know about this. I'm going to want Valley indented. So I hit Enter. And that's going to allow me to do it. Okay. Although this one's going to be in the wrong place. Okay. I'll come back to that one. Watch this now. I'm going to hit Tab. And look, it did it right. Okay. Woohoo. Let me go down here. And I'm going to hit Tab. Did it right. This is one of the little tricky things that happen. It hit Return. So this needs to be indented. So I hit Enter. Or there, it took it for me. And there you go. It's all set up. Okay. Get works cited centered. You guys know how to do that. Don't do the space bar. Don't do that. Okay. You're officially supposed to hit Control Enter and put this on a separate page. And that's what it looks like. Okay. Again, get this down right now and you will learn the glories of MLA is easier than not MLA. What I see are a lot of students sweating it out and figuring out and doing it wrong over and over again because they're doing too much. Okay. Almost always when you're trying to figure out MLA, students start doing too much. Get MLA down, get it down this semester if you didn't get it before. Now's the time, and you'll be so happy. Frank's got to still work on his growing back his skull. No matter. All right, take care, you guys.